All right, so let's do just a few more ratio problems here. I said I'm making them up on the fly here. All right, so if an engine develops, we'll say oops, I don't want red. Red is bad color, right? We want black. So if an engine develops 300 horsepower, it's about 300 horsepower at full throttle. Let's change that one. Make it more realistic. 300 horsepower at this isn't realistic. Okay, at 75% power. At 75% power.
Really?
What is full power? What's it's 100%. There you go. Done. Find X right there. All right. So it's gonna be ratio. Okay. So a line equals line. All right. So we've got horsepower, and we have percent power, and we have horsepower. We have percent power. What are we trying to find here? Am I trying to find the horsepower or the percent? All right. What is horsepower here? 300. What is it here? 75%. I have a percent sign there. What is this line right here going to be then? That's X. I want to find. Well, what's right here? I didn't give anything. 100. Okay. Now, I wrote this in percent. So we have to be careful here because we can leave it in percent or we need to change it out of percent. How do I change something out of percent? So 100% as a decimal equals what?
1.
We move it 2 places to the right. So it's 1, 2. So it just becomes 1. So 75% is what as a decimal?
0.75.
0.75. That's 0.75. So we can make this 0.75 and 1.0. We can work out it that way. So that doesn't become real hard. So then it's, what is it over here? 300 times what? 1 equals 0.75 times X. So I got to get rid of the X. So I'm going to divide both sides by what? 0.75. So that just becomes 300 divided by 0.75 is 400. Thought I had a really, really good one here. Oh yeah, here it is. All right. This is the kind of stuff you really need to know. All right, so like for example, this right here, you're never going to be looking for what's 100%. It's going to be stamped right on the data plate or the pilot operating handbook that you've got a 400 horsepower engine. And if it's 400 horsepower at full power and I'm supposed to cruise at 70, what is the horsepower at 75%? All right, I could probably set it up as a ratio, but it's just easier to go 400 times 0.75 equals 300. And so you're at 300 horsepower. But here's what you really need to know. All right, you ready for this one? You can do this one, you're good. All right, you're working for a shop that gives you a 10% bonus. 10% bonus on all the parts you sell. 10% bonus on parts sold. All right. Working for a shop that gives you a 10% bonus on all of the parts you sell. All right. So in other words, you receive 10% of the company's. So what it is you get 10% of the company's profit on the sale of parts. All right. What's a crankshaft cost?
I don't know.
How much you say?
$5 grand.
Yeah, about $5 grand, at least $5 grand. And it's 4-cylinder, cheap 4-cylinder. All right, so that couldn't be bad. So you get that. The company marks up all parts 30%. So whatever the company buys it for, they bump it 30%. That sound about right, Michelle? 20. All right. So let's just see. You just sold a case of Phillips XC 2050 oil. You just sold a whole case
$110.
for $85.
That's cheap.
Bought it at Ramus.
Oh, okay.
All right. So you just sold it for $85. That's what you sold it. How much did you get? What was your profit? I'm hearing what, $8.50?
No.
Huh.
Is it on top?
You get
Is it on-
10% of the company's profit on the sale of parts. The company marks up all parts 30%.
So we're taking.
So the first thing you have to do, so I'm hearing stuff like, oh, it's $8.50.
So they paid $85, right?
Nah, you're making money off of what the company made. You got to, first of all, what did you sell to the customer for?
Okay, so then that means the company's really only making 20% because you're taking 10%.
It does not work that way, okay? So one thing I want to point out to you, it doesn't work backwards with percent. It's actually much more complicated than this. You can't just do some simple math. So what do we have to do?
Figure it out.
Figure it out using what? A ratio. And what am I trying to figure out?
What your profit is.
Well, it's two steps. Two steps.
Two steps.
What's the first step I need to figure out?
30%.
The real cost before the company marked up.
The price the company bought it at.
What the company bought it for. That's what I have to figure out. So what did the customer pay?
85. They marked up 30%.
They marked it up 30%. So how much did the customer pay? What percentage did the customer pay over
130.
there you go. Customer paid 130%. I'm trying to figure out what 100% of that was. Am I not? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to make these into decimals, right? So what is it? 85 times 1 is 1 equals 1.3x. So divide both sides by 1.3. And I get what? I'll do it here. X equals. What did the company pay for this thing? $65.38. All right, now armed with that information,
So you made $6.53.
what did the company make for a profit?
$19.62.
Okay, well, they charged the customer $85. Cost them $65.38. So how much is the profit?
1961, 62.
So the company made 19.62.
You better be selling a lot of these.
Okay, and how much did you make? Okay, so we're going to multiply that times 10% to find out what you made. So 1.962 times 10, the second function, and the number 2, because that's got the percent above it.
I quit.
Wow.
Take away 10%.
Don't be eating McDonald's.
I can afford to use it.
So what did you make?
$1.96.
$1.96.
You can,
Sounded like a good deal to begin with, didn't it?
and that's
But how many of
taxed
those sales are you making a day?
on your paycheck.
Well, that's it.
Joke's on you. You're
All right.
expert.
So let's just say that you talk somebody into a set of 4 new cylinders. 6 new cylinders, and each cylinder costs $1,500 about. I haven't bought some in a while. Depends on which one.
5 cylinders.
Huh?
Magnetos are about 550.
550?
Mhm.
So we could figure that out, but you probably don't want to. You want me to do that one?
Let's do it, Kevin.
Well, of course, we could finish this off. And let's see, in my notes, what's your bonus? Well, you get $1.96. That's before taxes. At a tax rate of 20%, how much would you get? Well, about a
Pay them back.
buck. Yeah, you'd be owing money. All right. Let's see.
Boy, you should look for an airline.
Okay, sometimes things don't always make sense, like this one. In a shipment of 80 wingtip lights, so you're working for a big company, you order 80 wingtip lights. And you found out that 15, no, you can't do LED because they're not, approved. And 15% were defective. Well, how many is that?
Oh, 15. I heard 15. Sorry. That's close.
Okay.
A little off.
Whoa.
How are you going to do this one?
Couple numbers. 80 minus.
Yeah. A little shimmy of this and that, and bada bing, bada boom.
Well, when you just have two things like this, I always find it easier to just do 80 times 15%, which equals 12. But I told you that you could always do a ratio. So what are my three numbers?
80, 15, and 100.
Okay. 80, 15, and 100. So I want to know how many were bad out of what? 80. So how many, this is bad, this is total. This is bad, this is total. So I want to know what? Say it again. How many were bad out of?
The total, 80.
80. So 80. How many were bad out of 80? Well, then I must have something over here. What are my two knowns?
15%.
15%. Percent means, what does percent mean?
Out of 100.
Yep.
Percent.
Out of 100. So it just told me that. 15 out of 100 are defective. So 15 out of 100 are defective. So there's my three unknowns. So it's 100x equals 80 times 15. 80 times 15 equals 1,200. I have 100x, so divide both sides by 100. 0, 1, 0, 0. And that means that x equals 12. 12 bad lights. Ooh, look at that. I saw that number before. All right. Get the idea? Okay.
Can you use that trick all the time? The 80 times 15%?
If it's something that simple, yeah. If it's like, I'm trying to think. Yeah. So if I have a 100 horsepower engine on my aircraft, and if I'm cruising at 65% power, how many horsepower am I using? 65%. Well, that's pretty easy, but you just multiply it times 0.65. Make it harder. I have a 150 horsepower engine, and I'm cruising at 75% power. It's just 150 times 75%, which is the same thing as 150 times 0.75. You can do it either which way. You can convert that percent to a decimal or leave it in your calculator and just do 150 times 75, the second key, and the number 2 right above that is the percent key. changes that to percent, and then equals, and you see 112.5. Everybody good with that? All right.